rainbows and umbrellas and the spitter-spatter of rain and the puddles and the waterlogged places. Heavy rainfall started yesterday, last night, and it's promised to continue today and for about another 10 days. So it's a huge blessing. It requires a little adaptation. And here we are in Magdala. And it's good because the readings today take us inside to Magdala, actually yesterday also. And, well, especially today. Today there are two stories in the Gospel that are interwoven. And these stories are represented in Magdala. So we're going to go inside in a moment. I just want you to be convinced that there's real rain happening, which is a huge blessing. It's been a rather dry winter so far, and we are very happy that there's a lot of rain. I know other places are plagued by flooding, and each place in the world has its own issue, its own difficulty, its own challenge. And today is a day of happiness here with so much rain, which is pure blessing. We love to see the sunrise, which brings so much joy. But here we also love to see the rain. So the volunteers arrived a few moments ago. They have prayer in the morning. And they arrived with their raincoats. And so the story we have today wraps around another story. So this is the wraparound, and then the other story is another woman who touches Jesus' clothes. We're in Mark chapter 5. But this story is also related in Luke chapter 8 and in Matthew chapter 9. If I remember my numbers, I didn't check them now. So here we have some of Magdala's archaeology represented in this beautiful Venetian glass mosaic with about 160,000 pieces of Venetian glass crafted for this purpose. And you can see some of the details here. That way you can get an idea of the work. And the technical work was done by experts near Venice in the Linarduzzi studios in Spielenbergo. And the artistic work was done primarily by Maria Jesus Ortiz de Fernandez, who has had a very important part in shaping Magdala. And here we see our synagogue at the end of the street, and I wonder if you know why it's here. Well, the reason is that one of the lead characters in today's story is Jairus. And Jairus is the head of the synagogue community. And here we have him in his house. His daughter, and he and his wife's daughter was very ill. In fact, she was dying. So off goes Jairus to Jesus to request a miracle. And we will go downstairs to see that other story that happened when he got to Jesus. A lady was touching Jesus' cloak and she was healed of 12 years of bleeding. And then the little girl died. And Jesus came with Jairus to his home, and he brought Peter, James, and John as witnesses, obviously, to this miracle. And he took the dead girl's hand in his hand. It was probably still warm. She was only very briefly deceased. And he said two words in Aramaic language, which have been translated for some very special reason always in every edition of the scriptures of the New Testament, but the phonetic sounds in Aramaic have always been given to us. Talita kum, Spanish or Russian or Chinese or Korean or Japanese or any language except in Aramaic. In Arabic, a little bit. In Hebrew also, there's a very close echo, but there it is. We hear it always, so it must have made a deep impression. Little lamb, arise. And rise she did. And here we can see in the face of the mother the drama expressed. First of all, the weeping in her eyes, and then the shock seeing her daughter come back to life. The profound questioning in this deep thinker and prayerful man, Jairus, holding the scrolls, as he tries to figure out who is this dude from Nazareth, this carpenter I expected to do a miracle, but to heal her, but he brought her back from the dead. That was the big question in the gospel after the calming of the storm at the end of chapter 4 in Mark. Here we're in chapter 5. And in chapter 4 we had that big question after the calming of the storm. Who is he? Who is this man? And yesterday we had him loosing the shackles and the chains of the man, which more deeply was the possession, freeing him from the legion of demons. Who is he? The fact that we have these acoustic sounds means that these words, when they were uttered by Jesus' mouth, made an incredible impact in the disciples. Just like Abba, Father, in Gethsemane, just like Ephata, be opened, and the deaf man could hear when Jesus put his finger in his ears. And the words, Lama Sabachthani, why have you abandoned me? So let's wander a little further along. And here we will go downstairs. Aye, thank you, Caro. I wasn't watching Caro. This fountain should be running normally, but it will be running when the pilgrims are coming in. So now let's go downstairs for the second part of the story. And I want to connect it with a very important and difficult line in the letter to the Hebrews. And that line is at the very end, but you have not resisted sin to the point of shedding blood. That's a very powerful line. You have not resisted sin to the point of shedding blood. Now I'm going to switch the lighting here for you to allow the picture to have its own balance of light. And this woman was shedding blood for a long time, 12 years bleeding. And she reaches out and touches the hem of his garment and is healed of 12 years of bleeding. Who touched me? Jesus asked. And the disciples said, look at the whole crowd pushing in from every side, and how can you ask who's touching? That's a crazy question, Jesus. But Jesus said, power went out from me. Somebody touched me. And this wonderful rendering by Daniel Carriola from Chile. Also Maria Jesus Fernandez is from Chile. And the iconographer too is from Chile. Those are the strokes of providence in life. Daniel Carriola painted the tip of her finger as healed. And the rest of the hand is still sickly. He studied many elderly and sick women's hands to produce this hand. You know, sometimes we think artists have it easy, but a lot of work goes in to pondering, preparing, drawing, testing, evaluating how to present a story. And then the woman comes forward and says, it was she, bleeding for 12 years. Imagine her health. All her wealth given to the doctors in vain. So now she is without her wealth, without her ability to live in that way. And then she was socially excluded. Because she was impure due to the hemorrhaging. This was a ritual condition in Jewish thought and thinking. And she would be permanently unclean, and therefore impossible for anybody to touch her, for her to touch anybody, to caress her children. To embrace her husband, to help her mother, to assist her sister, to help somebody in the street who just fell, or an elderly woman carrying a bunch of things and she couldn't help her because she'd make them impure. So in a certain sense she was dying as well of, first of all, health, of her role in society, her ability to move and do things. She was used to having wealth. And we have that little girl upstairs who died, Jairus' daughter. And Jairus is at this miracle here because he's there at that time. That's when he gets news that his daughter had died. And Jesus said, do not be afraid, just have faith. This is a first century road here. It continues outside this wall and goes south through the Franciscan time. So maybe Jairus walked here, maybe. We're not claiming that the miracle happened here. Simply this miracle is represented here because it's a woman, and in Magdala, women are honored, particularly in the women's atrium. So as we go upstairs to just wrap up, I bring the question with me in my heart. You have not resisted to the point of shedding blood. That means to the point of martyrdom. That means to the point of losing your life for the faith. But that's actually a decision that's not just for the martyrs, that's for every one of us, to lay down our lives for others in the normal detail and work of life. To be facing death, which is inevitable for all of us, like Jairus did so painfully when it was the case of his daughter, 12 years of age. The reality of death is so important. It's in the station. Some people get very scared when they see death very close up. Maybe we all do. Who wouldn't get scared? And what do we want? Do we want to get just 10 more years doing the same stuff, buying the same cars and clothes and food and just living in the same mediocrity? Or are we interested in a different kind of life? a life that's forever, a life that is God's kingdom in our lives. What is the deepest meaning of my life, the priority? What am I doing? Is my life just about consumption? 5 more years of sausages, 10 more trips abroad, more indulgence and pleasure? I wanted to go into the chapel there to the window, but I don't think we should disturb the volunteers who are praying. So we'll just go on the other side here to finish up. What are the great questions of life, the great purpose of life, the meaning of my life? What am I accomplishing? If I have 5 more years, what will I do? If I have 1 more week, what will I do? If I'm on my last day, what will I do? What relationships will I encourage and for them be a blessing? What's my hope? What's my hope? What am I living for? And could I, like we had the reading a few days ago, accept the confiscation of my goods in order to defend my faith? Or would I betray my faith to keep my castle? I think we all need to ask these questions about life, about the meaning of my life, about the purpose of my life, about what I'm going to accomplish in life, about why I would want another year, another 5 years, another 10 years, another 30 years. Let us ponder this deeply. There can be a great blessing in our lives. You have not resisted sin to the point of shedding blood. That's such an incredibly dramatic line. I can't help. I'm stunned by it myself. So, and people have sacrificed their lives to not sin, to not deny Christ, to not deny their faith. They're doing it today in different countries. God bless you. See you later, alligators.